Hey guys, welcome to another math lesson with HK Math and Science. This video will be about the gradient and the equation y equals mx plus c. And by the end of this lesson, we should all be able to decide if a gradient is positive, negative, zero, or undefined, be able to calculate the gradient of a line, and finally be able to find the y-intercept and gradient from the equation y equals mx plus c. So just pause the video here and take a couple of minutes to write these down. Alright, so let's start off with what the gradient is. That's a keyword for today. And the gradient of a line is a measure of how steep the line is. This is calculated by dividing the vertical rise by the horizontal line between 2 points. And a line has a positive gradient if it goes upwards from left to right, and has a negative gradient if it goes downwards from left to right. So on a Cartesian plane, something like this, if it goes that way, that is a positive gradient. This one will be positive, and if it's going something like this, that will be a negative gradient. That's going downwards from left to right. This one's going up from left to right. And just adding on to that, the gradient of a horizontal line is 0. So if your line is just straight horizontal, that one will be 0. And if it is vertical, that one is undefined. Just remember that. So we calculate the gradient by using this equation. Gradient equals rise over run. And the rise is simply the change in y, and run is the change in x. This will make a little bit more sense when we do some example questions in the next few slides. So for now, let's remember that gradient equals rise over run, and just remember that point and that point. Alright, so let's start with this question here. It says decide if the lines labeled A, B, C, and D on this graph have a positive, negative, 0, or undefined gradient. So let's start with A. A is the green line here, and if you go from left to right, you can see that it's going down. And remember, if it's going down from left to right, it has a negative gradient. So A would be negative. Let's find B now. B is that purple line. It is vertical. Remember, vertical has an undefined gradient, so that one will be undefined. C, if you go from left to right, it's going up. So this one has a positive. And finally, D, this one is horizontal, so it has a gradient of 0. So just going back to the slides, remember, gradient of a horizontal line is 0. Gradient of vertical line is undefined. Left to right, upwards is positive, left to right, downwards is negative. Make sure you remember all of those. Alright, now it's your turn. Very similar question. Have a go at these by yourself and just unpause it when you're ready to go through it with me. Alright, so question A. This one is horizontal, so remember horizontal line is 0, that blue line here. Question B, it's going upwards from left to right, so this one will be positive. C, it's going downwards from left to right, so that one will be negative. And D, it's going vertical, so this one will be undefined. Give yourself a tick for each one you got correct there. Alright, now we're going to find the actual gradient of different lines, and this is going to use the rule M, or gradient. M stands for gradient. Let's try and remember that. Is rise over run. So rise is the change in y, so it means how high we're going up, and run is the change in x, so that's the horizontal. So to do this, we need to find two different points. And for this one, we're going to use the origin and this point here. So it'll be 0, 0, and 2, 3. So to get from 0 to 2, we're going up 3 spaces. So the rise will be 3. And we're going to the right 2 spaces. So the run will be 2. I'll just make that a bit neater. It's 3 over 2. So your gradient is 3 over 2. Or if you put that in a calculator, that will give you m equals 1.5. Either one will be fine here. And just to double check, this is going from left to right, so it is positive. Make sure your answer is a positive number. And in this case, we're using the points 0, 4, and 4, 0. So we're going to use the same formula, m equals rise over run. We're going down this time, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, so it'll be negative 4, because we're going down. But we're still going to the right, so that part will be positive. This one will be 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the right. Negative 4 divided by 4 gives you negative 1. So our gradient here is negative 1. And this is going down from left to right, so we do know that this line is in fact a negative gradient. So key thing to remember here is m equals rise over run. Make sure you remember that. So that's how much it moves vertically divided by how much we have moved horizontally. Alright, now it's your turn. Have a go at these questions by yourself and just unpause the video when you're ready to go through them with me. Alright, so let's have a go at question A here. Our 2 points are the origin 0, 0, and 5, 2. So for this question, we're going up 2 spaces. So m, or the gradient, remember gradient m means gradient. So m is going to equal 2, which is the rise. We went up 2 spaces. Over the run, we went to the right 5 spaces. So it'll be 2 over 5, and that would be a gradient there. And next one, same formula, m equals rise over run. This time we're going down 6 spaces, so it'll be negative 6. Over to the right, still to the right, so that will be positive. So it'll be negative 6 divided by positive 3, and that gives you a gradient of negative 2. Give yourself a tick for each one you got correct there. Alright, now we're going to move on to the general format of linear equations. So linear equations will generally be written in this format: y equals mx plus c. So m is the gradient like we learned before, and c is in fact just the y-intercept. So please make sure you know that. This is a general form for a linear equation. Make sure you really know that. And that m is the gradient and c is the y-intercept. These will be very key points for you. So let's have a go at some questions with that. So for y equals 2x plus 3, remember it's just y equals mx plus c. Can you see that? M would just be the 2. So we know that m equals 2 there. The gradient for this equation is in fact just 2. And c, or the y-intercept, I'll just write that, or the y-intercept is positive 3. So already we know that the gradient is 2 and the y-intercept is positive 3. And in this case, same thing. This in fact is the m. Don't get confused by the fraction. M, or the gradient, is just 1 over 3. And c, or the y-intercept, is negative 4. Make sure you take into account that sign there. So let's have a go at this by yourself. Just pause the video here, and once you're done, just unpause the video and go through it with me. Alright, so in this case, m would just be 5. Remember, y equals mx plus c. So m is 5. And c is positive 2. Give yourself a tick for each one you got correct there. And for question B, m is in fact just 2 over 7. That one there. And c is going to be negative 5, or the y-intercept. Give yourself a tick for each one you got correct there as well. Alright, this time we're given a graph and we need to find the rules for these. So remember, as long as you know that the general format of an equation is y equals mx plus c, you should be fine. First step will be to find the gradient. Remember, gradient is rise over run. So something we learned earlier in this video. And we're going to find the rise, which is using these 2 points here. We're going up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and going to the right 1 space there. So our gradient is in fact just 4. So we got part of the equation now. That'll be y equals 4x plus c. We need to find c now. And remember, c is just the y-intercept, so that's where it crosses the y-axis. So that will be that point there. So y-intercept is negative 1, so our equation would in fact just be y equals 4x minus 1. And let's have a go at the next one. First step, once again, remember this equation, y equals mx plus c, and then next step is to find the gradient, and that's the rise over run. We're going down this time, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, so it'll be negative 4 over, going to the right 2 spaces, so it'll be negative 4 over 2, so our gradient is negative 2 here. So that's part of the equation. We have y equals negative 2x plus c. Now we need to find c. So that's the y-intercept. So that's where the graph, or that line, crosses the y-axis. And that's at 4 there. So our y-intercept is 0, 4. So we know c is going to be y equals negative 2x plus 4. Alright, now it's your turn. Just pause the video here, have a go at these by yourself, and unpause it when you're ready to go through it with me. Alright, so same deal here, using this equation, y equals mx plus c. Gonna find the gradient first, which is rise over run. So we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and going to the right 2 spaces, so m equals 2. And we just need the y-intercept, and that's negative 3. So m equals 2 and c equals negative 3. So we know the equation is going to be y equals 2x minus 3. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct. And next one, let's find m again. We're going down 6 spaces, so it'll be negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to the right 2 spaces, so it'll be negative 6 divided by 2. So our m is negative 3. And our y-intercept, or c, is going to be 6 here, because the graph crosses the y-axis at 6. So c equals 6. So our graph would just be y equals negative 3x plus 6. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct as well. Alright, so what about horizontal or vertical lines? These have a rule as well. But how do you write these graphs in this form? Y equals mx plus c. We don't really have the gradients here. This one is 0, the gradient, that's undefined. So how do you write an equation like that? In this case, it's actually much easier than you think. So for this graph here, no matter where you are, y is going to equal negative 3. So our rule is just y equals negative 3. It's where it crosses on the y-axis. Because we know wherever we go on the line, y is always going to equal negative 3. This one here, our x is always 7, so this one, for vertical lines, it will just be the x value there, so it'll just be x equals 7. It might have looked a bit confusing, but it's actually much simpler than the ones before. So this one is just y equals -3, and that's just x equals 7. Alright, pause the video you have got these by yourself and just unpause when you're ready to go through them with me. Alright, so this one, y equals 2 anywhere on the line, so the rule for this graph would just be y equals 2. And this one would simply just be x equals -4. Give yourself a tick for each one you got correct there. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys have a better understanding of the gradients, can calculate the gradient of the line, and finally can find the y-intercept and gradient from the equation y equals mx plus c. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys all back online.